Deanna Andrew, and I am the Assistant Director of Programs here at Urban Green Lab, and you are here for Sustainable Nashville Live. Today I'm here with Jeffrey Orkin, the owner of Greener Roots Farm, Nashville's first commercial-scale hydroponic farm. Hey, Jeffrey.
Hello.
The purpose of this series is to open a dialogue between the public and organizations that are contributing to great work around sustainability in Nashville, and you can check out all of our previous episodes on our YouTube. So before we get started, I'd like to remind you that Urban Green Lab is a nonprofit, and if you feel so inclined to support us, you can make a donation on our website at urbangreenlab.org, or you can text Team UGL, one word, to 44321 to get that donation link sent to your phone. So let's get started. I'm really happy to be talking to Jeffrey today. Not only does he run Greener Roots Farm, but he also served on the Urban Green Lab board for 2 years, helping us design our mobile lab. And he and I actually attended graduate school together at Lipscomb. He's creative, innovative, and just an inspiring guy. So I'm excited to talk with you today. Jeffrey, how are you doing?
I'm doing quite well, Deanna. How are you?
Pretty good, despite, the weather and everything going on.
Yeah.
So just at first, tell us about yourself and what brought you to Nashville.
Yeah, sure. So I'm originally from Mississippi and moved to Nashville after finishing school in 2007. My background is actually landscape architecture, so I moved here to work for an architecture engineering firm in downtown Nashville and live my best sustainable life. I lived in downtown, worked in downtown, and I think I drove my car like 1,000 miles the first 2 years I lived here because I just never used the car.
Yeah.
And so.
Great. So how did you get interested in sustainability?
So my sustainability journey definitely began as a landscape architect. I was the first LEED accredited professional at the firm that I worked at. And my lens of sustainability has definitely changed over the years, but started with just how we can design spaces more sustainably. A lot of that in the landscape architecture world has to do with managing water. So innovative stormwater management type stuff is where it all started. And then once I did lose my job, I started a landscaping business with a buddy of mine, and we focused a lot on just all of the sustainability elements of the built environment. So everything from native plants to rain gardens and all of that stuff. So was deep into that from just, professionally transferring out of college and being involved in the design build world.
Yeah. And then we both went to Lipscomb, and you did an MBA, right? And then focused on sustainability. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, I did the executive MBA thing through Lipscomb with the sustainability concentration. So had some overlapping classes in the sustainability world.
Yeah, cool. Well, then tell us about Greener Roots Farm. What is it and how did it get started?
Yeah, so Greener Roots Farm was born in a storage closet in the building that I lived in downtown. And that was at the time just me trying to figure out how to grow my own food indoors, which led me to hydroponic techniques as sort of the most efficient way to do that. And then the landscaping business just wasn't necessarily pulling on all my heartstrings. And I felt like I just personally was capable of doing something bigger just in the realm of sustainability and food systems. So we went from a closet to 130 square foot storage room on the roof of the building. Did a Kickstarter in 2014, and then in April of that same year rented a 6,000 square foot warehouse. And now we have a 6,000 square foot vertical farm, and then we have a 10,000 square foot greenhouse, 2 different facilities, but both of them grow herbs and leafy greens and supply them to the Nashville area.
Cool. Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't really understand what hydroponics is, can you give us a brief description?
Yeah, the simplest thing is it's growing food without the use of soil. And so all of our plants are floating in a water solution, and the nutrients that they would need are in that water. and they take up the nutrients through the roots that are floating in the water. So.
Great. And then how does that save resources?
Yeah, so the systems that we use are called recirculating hydroponic systems, which means that we're not dumping that water ever unless we have a spill, which happens occasionally. And so we don't have like runoff or evaporation. And so we're able to use like somewhere between 90-95% less water than a conventional agriculture system. And again, there's like none of the environmental issues that can come with conventional agriculture because there's nothing running off. Like it's a closed system. We don't have, we're not having to overwater things and worry about, you know, what the runoff potential is of any of the nutrients and that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're just not using soil, so you're not digging into the earth. You don't have soil runoff, right? You're not having to clear land to create farming.
Yeah, and it also, because of just the way the whole system works together, we can grow way more per square foot than you could outdoors. And then the fact that in our indoor farm, the vertical farm, everything is stacked. And so we're growing food 13 feet in the air, multiple levels. And so just from an efficiency standpoint, it has some advantages.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Just fitting a lot more within the same square footage. But you do use growing lights, right? And so how do the plants get the light that they need?
Yeah, so at the indoor farm, it's literally in a warehouse. And so we are using all LED lighting, specifically designed for growing. The greenhouse is a big glass building. And so we get natural light, but in order to maintain a really consistent year-round supply, we do have lights in there that are controlled by a sensor. And so any day that we're not going to get enough light to maintain the growth level we need to, the artificial lighting comes on.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And like even with using that lighting, you still find that hydroponics are more efficient in terms of growing food per square footage.
We definitely are capable of growing more food per square foot. There's lots of conversations that happen in terms of like, we're using energy in order to do this. And, I think that like, again, it just depends on what conversation you want to have. I think that I find a lot of solace in the fact that we're doing this 365 days a year. None of our food is traveling more than about 50 miles. And so, we're definitely using some energy to grow the plants, but we don't have tractors out there burning fuel, and we're not transporting our food 2,500 miles from California. And we're able to create a really small scale local food economy and produce really high quality produce year round. So.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I was gonna mention the local urban agriculture piece of it as well. I was looking at some recent studies on the greenhouse gas effect of multiple types of foods, and then along the product chain, what parts are contributing the most to the emissions. And, a little while ago, we all talked about food miles, but a large piece of it too is how the land is treated. And then, the land displacement and how the product is being made, and things like tractors and things like animal products, just how that impacts the greenhouse gas emission much more than we realize. And so with hydroponics, again, you're on a small square footage, so you're in a small area. You're not displacing land that could have been farmland. You're already in an urban environment, right?
Yeah. And the other thing, like for us, you've seen my yard. Like I have a very large backyard garden, so I am not anti-soil farming.
Yeah.
And a lot of the really bad statistics for farming come from large-scale industrial agriculture. There are lots of great local soil farms doing incredible, like market garden style, 1-2 acre diverse crops, lots of rotations. So I don't ever want to come to the table saying I think this is better than other farming. For the crops we grow, which is primarily lettuce, but we say herbs and leafy greens because there's a bunch of other things we grow as well. It is one of the better ways to produce the volume that we're doing with the number of people that we use year round, and just the quality. It truly is sort of hard to beat for those products.
Yeah, and that actually brings us to one of our questions we got from Instagram, which is, aside from the environmental benefits of hydroponics, which we just discussed, can you talk about the taste and tenderness benefits of your product?
Yeah, so I definitely didn't start the business intending to grow lettuce that gets the feedback it gets. Like, I saw a void that needed filled just from a supply perspective, but I literally every week get some message or email from someone talking about how it's the best tasting lettuce they've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, like, we have some things that might be considered secret sauces, but I think the majority of that is just the fact that it's harvested and delivered within a day, and then oftentimes in your refrigerator that day. So freshness has a lot to do with it. The way that our product is handled, so from the time we harvest it, get it packed and into a cooler, is almost always less than an hour, and it's oftentimes less than 30 minutes.
Wow.
And that's just not possible when you're harvesting in a field, especially like, the people in California, acres and acres and acres of product that's being harvested and packed in the field and then sits out for a while and then has to be transported. And the number of days that it takes for a product to get to you is extremely significant compared to the 1 or 2 days that you'll often be getting our product. So,
yeah.
And then the other thing that, is a little, hydroponics is a very scientific process. And so we take water tests once a month, sometimes more often, and we're looking at all of the micro and macronutrients in the water. Those nutrients transfer to what's happening in the plant, and we're able to manipulate to very specific levels all of that. And so we're adjusting, a really good example, like Epsom salt, which is magnesium sulfate. So, if we notice that magnesium is low, or out of a range that we deem acceptable, we can adjust that one specific thing to be sure the plants are getting exactly what they need, which in the end translates to flavor and nutrition and all of those things. So
yeah, you have a lot of control over what is going into the system.
Exactly.
And then how do people get your lettuce? How do you sell it?
So prior to COVID, we were wholesale only. And so we have the product at a variety of grocery stores, produce place, both of the all 3 of the turnip trucks. Keep forgetting they opened a new one. Hendersonville Produce, Oh My Chives, Herman Market. And then we are also in quite a few restaurants. I would not be able to list them all at this point. So lots of places. But then after tornado and COVID rocked our city, we did start offering home delivery. So every week you can order on our website and we will deliver to your front door on Wednesday. We do have a slightly limited delivery range just to make it efficient for us. But if you're outside of that delivery range, we have a meet along the route option, and you can shop and we will kind of give you a heads up where we're going to be, and you can come grab your products from us when we're delivering on Wednesdays.
Cool. And that system, because I've used it, I just want to say that you also have other cool local products, right? It's not just your lettuces, you're being able to serve other small businesses.
Correct. Yeah, we connected with about a dozen other local purveyors of things, anything from CBD products to pasta and hot sauces and bread. So it's, we'd like to think it's a one-stop shop. We definitely don't have everything. We don't have milk, but there's quite a few locally made products that you can order from other people. And that was just a simple way for us to kind of diversify our offerings and also support some of the other local people that are feeling the same kind of strain from just the world we live in right now.
Yeah. So is there anything else that you've had to change or adjust because of COVID, or were there any other changes to your business model?
That was really the main one. I mean,
Hmm.
we've done a little bit of sort of staff shuffling here and there just to keep everyone busy, but we've
Hmm.
maintained full employment and actually brought on someone new part time. So
Yeah.
I think the main changes have been just sort of shifting my personal workload of the as the owner of the business. Like my team still has their full set of responsibilities to take care of. And so
Mhm.
when we decided to add the home delivery, that really became a new thing for me to do.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, in the past few months, especially throughout the summer, luckily in Tennessee, we have a lot of good local farmers, like you said, that are doing great work. So we've also seen a little bit of a shift for people almost wanting to use local products and local farms more than they were before because they feel like they can trust it. They know where it's coming from. And so we actually saw an uptick in like CSAs and local farmers markets.
yeah,
So it seems like there's room for something like that service, that drop off and subscription service.
for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's been hard. Again, we're a company of six
Hmm.
and we grow upwards of 30 tons of lettuce a year. And so it's a lot of work for a small crew. And, the home delivery thing has been something you could build a whole business model around that, but you have to have the energy and the resources to focus on that. So we're
Hmm.
still trying to figure out, the best way to pull that off and promote it and, keep getting more business for ourselves from it, but at the same time, transparently just maintaining sanity with all the other work that has to be done. So,
Right. Yeah. That's a big job. So are there any misconceptions or questions you get a lot about hydroponics or the industry that you wish people knew about?
so two things we don't do. I get comments all the time about growing weed. We don't grow weed. So that's the first thing that's often, I mean, literally since we started, everyone's like, you're gearing up for legalization, aren't you? And I was like, no, like, I think nutritious food is a very valuable resource.
Hmm.
And then the other thing, again, we do this on a very small, like test scale, but hydroponic tomatoes get a lot of very bad information. And that's actually not because it's not hydroponic tomatoes' fault, it's our food system's fault. Um, and interestingly enough, that whole debacle was kind of built out of demand. But essentially, almost, if not every tomato you buy at a grocery store is grown hydroponically. Um, and they almost all are shipped from Mexico. Um, and the reason they are the way they are, meaning hard and not tasty, is because grocery stores demanded that they be stackable and have long shelf life. And then also, there's some information out there that fast food chains were needing tomatoes that could be sliced very thin, and a soft, delicious tomato can't be done that way. And so what happens is the tomatoes are actually harvested before they're ripe, and then they're put into containers with ethylene gas that turns the tomato red. And so you have a beautiful red tomato that wasn't actually ripened on the vine, so it doesn't have a lot of flavor. And so you can grow hydroponic tomatoes and let them ripen on the vine, and they will be delicious. But it's just
Okay.
not the common practice. It's also, again, like that's not something we focus on, but we do have a small 24 pot system that we've been doing some testing and have successfully grown tasty tomatoes. So it's possible.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't know that most of the tomatoes in our grocery stores are hydroponic. So that's interesting. And
Yeah,
it,
and there's actually so our current what's the nicest way to say this? There's some current restrictions with things coming from Mexico that have made the
mhm,
supply a little more challenging.
mhm,
Um, and actually, right down the road in Kentucky, they are in the process of building one of the largest, if not the largest, hydroponic tomato production facility in the world. Uh,
wow.
it is insanely large. So there's going to be a lot of that supply is actually now going to be coming out of Kentucky instead of Mexico.
Okay. Yeah. I wonder if that will maybe shorten the transport
I,
time and increase the
yeah,
freshness.
I'm hopeful that the flavors will be better. I know the grower there, and they're capable of.
Yeah.
It just depends on if the supply chain will allow it to happen that way or not.
Right. Yeah, well, that goes along with what we were saying, just buying locally, buying fresh. You know that the time that it's harvested to the time it gets to you is an
Yeah.
important time factor for freshness. So,
Yeah, I mean it's something that like I've realized growing food in my backyard. You know, like pulling a carrot out of the ground and eating it is a different experience than, you know, grocery store stuff. So,
right. Yeah.
or I should say conventional grocery stores. You can definitely go to a produce place or a turnip truck and get some delicious stuff.
Yeah. Well, great. So yeah, I was going to ask you, what do you wish Nashvillians knew more about hydroponics, but you may have already covered that. Is there anything else you wish they knew or?
Um, no, I don't
Yeah,
think anything's jumping out.
good. And so I want to ask one more question too, before we sort of wrap up, which is that how is there, how else do you see hydroponics fitting into a sustainable community of Nashville? You've said like shortens mileage, allows you to grow that food year round, but is there any other way you kind of see it bringing your community together?
I mean, there certainly is like the sexy factor, like from an education standpoint and getting to see it. One of the, you know, in an urban context, one of the big advantages is, you know, we can do this just about anywhere. You need a few things, but setting it up is quick and you can be up and running in a very short period of time. Whereas like most farms have to spend years building their soil and, you know, it's not just oh, here's some land, I want to grow some food. There's a process involved. You know, Nashville obviously has the fortune of having access to lots of land. And so like a lot of the bigger indoor farms are happening in much larger cities where you just don't have access to that type of thing. But I do see like long term, I think, you know, food desert type areas like this has the potential to have little pocket, you know, locations where people could access something that they wouldn't have access to otherwise. And then generally just as the city keeps growing, more people are going to want access to the products like we're growing. And so I think there will be continue to be a spot in this market for what we're doing, hopefully.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, our city is only growing and more people. And I think people appreciate having fresh food year round. And like you said, too, in our schoolwork, we see a lot of STEAM and STEM classrooms learning about hydroponics and creating little model systems and teaching kids how to grow food when, you know, luckily we do have a long season here, but, you know, when kids are in school from fall to spring, it's, you know, not necessarily the best time for outdoor gardening. So they can do hydroponics, they can learn about growing and farming inside.
Yeah, we've built a couple of systems, and actually if anyone wants to reach out to me about that, we have equipment that we retire that could then be reused for that type of thing. So we built a system for a teacher this past year, and exactly what you said, like school kids are, well, when kids are in school, they're not there during the growing season. And so being able to do it indoors definitely provided a unique opportunity for those kids.
Yeah, and especially in an urban environment where, you know, I went to school here and we didn't learn about farming or growing food in school. You know, we're in an urban city and we don't really learn those things. So it's nice for kids to be exposed to that also.
For sure. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So I think closing out, we have launched a campaign called Find Your Lab, and it encourages everyone to explore sustainable living in their own life and, you know, create a lab of learning. So is there anything that you're currently working on in your personal life that is your lab of sustainability learning?
So I think the two major things that my wife and I have been doing, we had a kid, and so we grow as much food as possible in our backyard, and I think that will continue to be a lifestyle thing that yeah, I mean, I think that like everyone is capable. It takes time and a little bit of effort and willingness to fail. But when you have a kid and he goes out there and grabs a tomato off the vine and crams it in his mouth, it is extremely rewarding. And then the other thing that's a little more granular that Julie and I did, we just decided one day that we were not going to buy meat that was not locally produced. And so we will not purchase any meat. Right now, Kroger is very close to our house. And so if we're going to go and we need to get meat, we don't go to Kroger. Turnip Truck is also close to our house. Porter Road Butcher is close to our house.
Yeah.
And then we obviously are connected with Bear Creek Farm and a couple of other meat growers. So yeah, that, I'm preaching to the choir here, but like that's a big decision. It's way more expensive to purchase local meat, but the impact is also huge. So
yeah, that's true. And I also remembered that you and your wife were really thinking about the sustainability when you have a newborn baby and like the diaper situation. So I did want to ask you. So with our lab of learning, we try to share that it's going to be a laboratory. It's going to be experimenting. You're going to like things. You're going to not like things. So was there something with the diapers or anything to do with having the baby that you figured out?
Oh, we definitely use washable diapers, and it's been excellent. Actually, the couple of times that I've had to put a disposable diaper on him, it has just felt wrong to me. And I know there's like varied conversations about that whole thing, so I'm not judging anyone that uses disposable diapers. It works for our lifestyle and our processes, and it definitely would not work for everyone's. If you're considering it, my only tip there is to get the liners that you put in them. The liner is something that you throw away, and that gives you lots of mess, and then the rest of it just gets washed. And then like little things like what we use reusable wipes for him, and then like the spray, we just have like a spray bottle that we mix up this concoction on the stove and use that to like spray the wipes. So
and I'm sure that took you it took you a little bit to figure that out, right?
Well, it's funny because at this point we've never done it any other way. So like it didn't even come to my mind that was like something we were doing. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess we do that. And some
That's
people
pretty big.
don't do that. So
yeah, I think it could be seen as like a very challenging kind of different way to do things, but you're right. I mean, even generations ago before we had disposable diapers, that's how it works. So
yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing that. So lastly, what is your sustainability vision for Nashville? Something else, if you haven't already mentioned it.
Man, that's a hard one. I mean, I think so. Like I mentioned earlier, like I came originally from the design world, which does a lot with just like people spaces and like bikeability of the city and like walkability of the city. And the transit thing has been something I feel like we've been trying to pull off for years and have yet to do that successfully. So I think for me sustainability comes down to like human equity and like what do people have access to, and everyone deserves the ability, regardless of where you are or what you do, to access things. And so if we have barriers for that, whether it's food or transportation or bikeability, all the things that we can improve there to make this place better for everyone, to me that that should be the sustainable Nashville we all strive for. But that's a big ask.
A lot to do, but I'm glad you said that. We do, right. Sustainability includes social equity and access for everyone. And that's how Urban Green Lab defines sustainability. It includes that definition of providing a better quality of life for everyone. So that's something really important to us too. So thanks for saying that.
Sure.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to share or plug, or anything you want people to know about? People can find out more on your website and on your socials, and find out where to find your produce on your website.
Yes, exactly. Greenerroots.com. And if you want to look into our ordering thing, you can click on the order button at the top right. We have a variety of options there, including some subscriptions, which is sort of like a subscribe and save type thing on Amazon, where if you don't want to order every week, you can just subscribe to the things you want to get. We offer weekly and bi-weekly deliveries on that currently. And then do your best to support all of these local businesses, especially restaurants. I know it's a challenging time to feel comfortable going out, but at least consider doing some takeout. I don't know if that would really fall in the realm of sustainability things we're doing, but my wife and I do try and support a local takeout opportunity every week, just because those people are hurting right now. So
yeah, economic vitality is also part of sustainability, so we've got to make sure our Nashville economy is succeeding and our local businesses are supported. So that's right.
It is amazing how interconnected it is. Like, you want to talk about local food and local farms. Well, most local farms are trying to sell wholesale. Well, I say most, a lot are, and if they lose access to their wholesale because people aren't supporting them in this time,
that's a great tip. Thank you, Jeffrey.
For sure.
Thanks for being here with us today. It was really great to talk to you, and always good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah. So next week, we'll be interviewing Gracelyn Jones, project analyst at Wilmot Inc. And if you have any questions for Gracelyn about sustainable building or sustainable services, please send them in on our socials or by email to patrick@urbangreenlab.org. Also, if there are any other organizations or projects that you'd be interested in learning about to have on Sustainable Nashville Live, you can email them to us again at patrick@urbangreenlab.org. And until next time, remember to live sustainably.